Welcome to the Emily the Mystic Show. You're about to walk through a portal that leads to all things mystical, magical, spiritual, and supernatural. I'm your host, Emily. I'm a spiritual mentor, an Akashic Records practitioner and teacher, an intuition development coach, and a galactic channeler. If you're an old soul on a self-discovery and healing journey, you are in the right place. We'll be diving in deep to some of my favorite mystical topics, including manifestation, past lives, the spirit world, energy, and so much more. Get ready to embrace your inner mystic and live your most authentic life possible. The portal is now open. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Emily the Mystic Show podcast, where we have opened the portal today to another exciting mystical guest, Andrew. So Andrew is a limiting belief expert and spiritual mentor that specializes in helping his clients reconnect with their authentic selves and experience an abundant life through the process of inner alchemy and source recall. Ooh, can't wait to chat about that today. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And to kick us off, I would love to know, I've been asking everybody who I interview these two questions, which are, what is your astrology, sun, moon, and rising? And what is your human design type?
Yes. So my sun and rising is Sagittarius. So I'm a double Sag, and my moon is Aquarius. So I'm very intuitive and I feel things very strongly. And then my human design is manifesting generator.
Love that. We love the manifesting generator energy, myself being one, and I know a lot of the members of my audience are as well. So thank you for bringing your multifaceted, multi-talented self here to the show. And I want to start us off just because as we're filming this episode, we're in the midst of eclipse season, midst of Mercury retrograde. When this episode airs, our audience will sort of still be integrating and navigating all of those complex energies that are going on out there. So I would love to hear, Andrew, how has this time of year been treating you? What's been coming up for you? And what have you been navigating?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this time of year has been a really interesting time of year just because so 2 years ago, my dad died. And then last year we had to we chose to sell our family home. So last year was a big moment of like love, releasing and letting go. My cousin died as well in a car crash. So there was a lot of releasing. And then we relocated to Cornwall, and I've been living with my mum to just kind of help her integrate. And it's difficult, what she's been through. And so, from January to now, it's been up and down, lots of different things, a lot of trying to get my mother motivated, a lot of like trying to support her, trying to get her to be as positive as possible, but then also beautiful experiences of doing like EFT, emotional freedom technique with her, or doing chanting with her, and like getting her to tap into all of these different, her own mystical ness, which was really, really cool. And I went skiing as well, which has been really amazing with my boyfriend, not boyfriend. So this is this guy that I've been like seeing, but not seeing. And then we've been on and off and on and off. So that's very like, with this eclipse season of just kind of, and so there's been a lot going on around that as well. And also I think for me specifically, it's been really clear as to what do I want to birth into this world? Like, what is the legacy that I want to leave? Like, how do I want to be remembered? I think, I'm 33. I'm 33. Jesus' age. Yeah, I just feel like, okay, you're getting older. Now's the time to really like set these roots down and really be clear as to like what you're here to do and how you want to show up. And there's been a lot of changes and transitions, especially, with social media. There's been a lot of shifts around the algorithm and stuff as well. So it's learning to navigate that as well. So yeah, lots going on.
Lots going on. So incredible what you just shared. And I would love for you to share with your audience a little bit about what that legacy looks like now. Like, what does your work look like now? What do you share with the world so that they can get to know you better?
Yeah, I mean, so I am, as you said before, like I'm a limiting belief expert. So that's my forte. I'm very good at like tuning into people's energy and just really understanding where they're out of attunement with their authentic self. So like what's happening within their frequency that's not in alignment and what needs to shift. And so, for me, the legacy that I really want to leave is to just get people to really just fall in love with themselves and to be their authentic self. And what I mean by that is our personality is always going to be different. So like, I can be goofy, I can be camp, but someone else might not be goofy and camp, but that doesn't mean they're not being their authentic selves. It's just for me, authentic self means actually coming back to our true self, which is source energy, which is God, which is love. And so that really is my dharma, is to just help people remember their true divinity and remember their limitless potential and capacity. And from that perspective, what they can achieve and bring to this world.
Wow. Love everything that you just shared. And I would love to know, when did that journey begin for you? Share a little bit about perhaps some of the major moments in your life or your childhood that led you to offering such a powerful service for the world.
Listen, I've always been like really intuitive as a kid. I've always felt energy strongly. And I remember my parents like calling me paranoid because I would know when they had an argument and I would know when things were not in alignment energetically. And I would say something and I would be called, oh, you're being paranoid or you're reading into things too much. And so then I just started to like think, oh, maybe I am just too sensitive, but it never left me. And that, obviously I was growing up as a gay man. And I had like all of this paranoia as well that like people could read my mind because it was so taboo where I grew up in rural France. And that I just felt like it weighed on me so heavily. And so that played a massive role as well in actually hiding my authentic self, right? And kind of I had to pretend a lot of my life until I came out when I was like 21, I think. But the real like kind of shift within my own spirituality happened when I was at university. And I dabbled in drugs, did quite a lot of them, and I did a lot of ketamine. And basically what happened was I had a drug-induced psychosis, which was mirrored with a spiritual awakening. And I had some very mystical experiences take place with my eyes open. So it wasn't like I was just tripping out. It was like I was having these moments where I could see like energy, like auras, colors. I could hear like voices. I could feel like energy so strongly, like that. I just really almost like tangible, like I could taste it. And it was fun, but then, I kept on dabbling with drugs and stuff, and I wasn't very grounded and anchored in myself. And slowly, maybe my darker thoughts and stuff came to play. And so then darker things came in, and I started to like believe that I was evil, and I was like convinced that I was the devil or a demon, and I became incredibly paranoid. And I wasn't able to make like eye contact with anyone because I thought they could read my mind and they could see that I was a bad person. And in hindsight, I can see that that's a lot of it was linked to my religious upbringing and my Catholicism and everything to do with that. And it was scary. I had really only two options: was death. I was going to commit suicide, or like Andrew, like you have to remember your own light. Like this is because I was going to sleep and I was dreaming that I was stuck in hell, and I would wake up having a panic attack. And like waking up having a panic attack is not a nice feeling at all. I was terrified to go to the toilet because I had this idea in my head that if I went to the loo, I was peeing out my good energy. It just became so bonkers and so like dangerously unanchored And so I lost myself. But at the same time, I was at university and I had to just keep a brave face, and I had a social life, and everything just kept ticking on, and ended up getting a very high grade at university because I was just like, right, what do I, and I just used that as
Of course.
yeah, like a way of just being like, okay, focus all your energy on this, and then maybe it will go. But it never went, and it just stayed with me for 7 years. I was dealing with this PTSD. Luckily, I met my ex-boyfriend, who was a huge help for me, and he told me that I could be loved. And I started doing yoga, and I started doing card readings, and then I was like, oh my God, like I really love angel cards. Like I feel like I'm tapped in with, because a lot of my trips were around angels. So I had this belief that I was an angel, and I was very connected to the angelic realm and all that kind of stuff. And so played around with that. And then bit by bit, it developed. I was an actor in London, and I also taught English to refugees and asylum seekers. And then this is a long story, nearly finished.
Take your time. This is such a good story. We love to
Okay.
hear your truth. Thank you for
Okay.
sharing it.
No worries. Yeah. So then I went to an ayahuasca retreat, and when I was at the ayahuasca retreat, I had a lot of back pain, and I had a lot of different experiences, really great experiences. And well, the main thing that I got out of it was that evil is an illusion of the mind, and actually, when you just can just like settle in, actually, evil doesn't even exist. But anyway, I got back to London, and I was meditating, trying to let go of anger and jealousy, and and I just felt this twinge in my back, and I was like, oh, and I kid you not, I tried to get out of bed, and I just fell on my face, and I slipped 2 discs through meditation. My back was already sore, okay, so it wasn't just like that, but I had not. I was lying down, like it was the power of energy, and I was like, damn, there's something about this. Yeah. So then I started to, I had time off work, and I started to do different spiritual practices and modalities. And, I started investing in learning about stuff, and people were like, wow, you're really good. And then in March 2021, I set up my business, and you were one of my clients, and it just took off. And I realized, wow, like this is where you're meant to be, Andrew. You're meant to. I realized that I went through the depths of darkness in order to be able to be so anchored in my light, so I could be a lighthouse for others to do the same, right? And I'm truly grateful for that. And yeah, I guess that's how I became who I am now.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like the audience can relate to so much of what you shared, especially navigating really that journey of the false self and being the false self. I mean, my audience will know I've shared a lot about my own journey with pretending to be this person that I thought I was, because that was, what was accepted by society, and having this fancy corporate job and partying on the weekends, exactly like what you spoke to, and how we develop some of these coping mechanisms and behaviors and habits and things that really pull us away from who we are authentically at our core. And it's that journey of, yes, we get pulled away, but there's so much beauty in that, because ultimately it ends up leading you right back home to yourself if you choose to stay the course, which is not an easy course to stay. So
I think that's like, yeah, the gospel really. Like people are all about, manifesting, and if you look on TikTok, and it's so current and stuff, but actually people are not realizing that it takes work. Like where you are right now in your business, where I am right now in my business, we've done so much work on ourselves, right? And if you really want to like lead with light, and if you want to be like a true light leader, you have to do the work. You have to like let go of the resentment. You have to let go of the guilt, the shame. You have to go into forgiveness. You cannot be an embodied leader of light if you're still holding on to all of this dense energy that is very, very, anchored into the false self, anchored into this egoic perception of reality. It's not about being perfect. I'm sure you still have your things, and I still have my things, of course. But I can honestly say, hand on heart, that I've worked through a lot of my stuff, which means that I don't get triggered so much, and which means that I can navigate the world in a lot more balanced way, which doesn't lower my vibration, and which then allows me to attract even better and good things into my life.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And I also love what you spoke about with navigating the shadow and some of the darker aspects of yourself and not being afraid to go there. Because I think there are so many people in the spiritual community who see shadow work as being like this very marketable, pretty thing when it's really not, you know? And sometimes I feel like we use shadow work as a term to kind of bypass what it really is, which is actually going into the depths of your psyche and meeting those parts of yourself that you have avoided, ignored, pushed away, rejected for so long, and actually holding space for them and actually holding love and compassion for them. And that is not an easy journey. I can tell you because I've been there myself. My audience knows this. So thank you, Andrew, for doing the work, you know, and for holding space for your clients to do the same, because some people out there, you know, aren't able to go into the depths of that hard shadow work. And you've come out on the other side.
I have. And you know, like I feel so blessed to have had that experience. I know that I created it for myself for so many reasons, right? And I think, you know, anyone's listening now, anything that you feel like you have a huge regret to, you know, that you feel like you're still wishing like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. You know, you're still stuck in this kind of loop of trying to change it. If you can just bring acceptance to it, and of course it takes work, right? You have to release all of the energy around it. But when you can bring acceptance to that moment, something is going to unlock, something huge is going to unlock within you, because it's your largest, biggest trauma, which is actually harboring the most treasure, right? Like in the depths of your darkness, you have this treasure chest of gold that is just waiting to be discovered.
My gosh, 100% yes. So what does that look like for you in terms of how you help your clients navigate those aspects of themselves? And what does that journey look like that you lead your clients through?
I mean, every client is different, you know. For me, what's important is when I connect with my client, it's getting to understand what are their values and are they living in alignment to those values. So that's a quantifiable method in the work that I do. So we grade the values that they're living at, and then after they finish working with me for 4 months, we regrade the values to see what the shift is, and it gives them a good quantifiable experience where they're like, oh shoot, I have changed. But when I work with my clients, it's really about helping them find the pieces. So our bodies are a roadmap, and every single experience that we've had is still locked within our body, especially trauma. So I always get my clients to, and this would be a bit different to how we work because I've obviously evolved after those 2 years. But I get them to tap into first the energy in their body, which then will bring them back to memory. And then in that memory, we then start to well, I use the word re-educate and reframe the inner child, because the inner child, basically, it doesn't always have to be the inner child. It can be the inner teenager, the inner adult, whatever. Like there's all the inners, right? But it's basically just kind of, if you are still navigating life through the wounded inner child, wounded inner teenager, and that's why you're being triggered, right? That's why, oh, someone didn't answer your text message. Oh, abandonment issues just came up, right? So that inner child needs to understand what was taking place in that moment. It needs to understand, like, actually had nothing to do with you and everything to do with the other person. And so it's really this beautiful kind of experience where we nurture the inner child and change, you know, its understanding and its perception through visualization, but through, you know, also talking therapy, and really helping them start to let go of the anger, let go of the sadness, let go of all that kind of stuff, and come from a place of understanding. Because when you have understanding, you have awareness. Once you have awareness, things shift. The only reason things aren't shifting is because your part of your psyche doesn't have the awareness to shift it yet. And so my, like, I guess, gift is I'm able to tap into people's like deeper parts of themselves, right? So they might say, oh, I'm really struggling, like, with money, and the issue is never the issue, right? So I can just feel into it, and I can sense, okay, there's something more going on than the money, right? Or I can sense that this person really doesn't love themselves at all. And if we want to create success, we have to love ourselves if we want sustainable success. Of course, there's plenty of successful people out there that don't love themselves. But if you want sustainable, holistic success, you have to love yourself. You have to be like, fucking, I am the shit. I fucking love myself. I adore myself, and that's what I get my clients to really get into and tap into. And for me, the biggest wins for me are not the material. Yes, the material is great. Yeah, like I have clients that make 50K in a month. That's all good and well. But for me, the big shifts for me is like when they suddenly see a parent in a different perception, when they suddenly have forgiven their father for the way that they were treated, and now they have an actual relationship with that parent, when they are able to let go of the shame of something that's been holding them back for so long. Like that for me is the most beautiful thing, because they're actually just remembering their true divinity. They're remembering who they truly are, which is love. And they're actually moving out of this false self and into their true self. And there's nothing more beautiful than that.
Oh my gosh, yes, I couldn't agree more. And I think the hardest piece of the puzzle that you said so articulates that you articulated so clearly is helping people find that awareness, because that awareness piece is almost 90%, I think, of the issue, is coming to the awareness of what's actually underneath the layers, what's energetically holding you back, what your subconscious mind is holding. And once you bring that awareness into the light, that's when the real work can really begin, and you can start to act differently, make different decisions, change your behavior. And that's ultimately what leads you to the path that you want.
Exactly. And I mean, look, our limiting beliefs, we all have limiting beliefs, right? And I know you experienced the muscle testing, which is a really beautiful way of kind of seeing like what our limiting beliefs are, because sometimes we're like, oh no, of course I love myself. Like, and then when you actually do the muscle testing, your body shows you that you don't love yourself, and you're like, oh, okay. And then that brings a little spark of awareness, and you actually start to tap into truer aspects of yourself, because we're all gonna, move through life with these masks and pretend that everything's fine, and actually say, no, I'm good, of course I'm good. And it's like, bitch, like if you're here, like there may be some stuff that we need to work on. Like we're not here to be perfect, we're here to shift and change. And it's not about being addicted to healing either. Like it's not about like I'm broken and I need fixing. It's actually never ever choose to work with someone if you feel like you need to work with them, because it's a very disempowering energy. It will immediately bring you attachment, because you'll be like, I need this, which is an illusion. You don't actually need it. And so then you're going to be disappointed, because it's not going to get you your results that you feel like you should be getting, because it's coming from the wrong energy. Only decide to work with a mentor when you want it, when it's coming from this place of like, I want to change. Yeah. Like I'm ready to change. I'm so ready to just be my best gosh darn self, rather than this like lack energy. It's a big difference in frequency, and it will change the way your results when you're working with your mentor.
Oh, totally. I would love to back up just a little bit so that everyone who's listening has clarity on this. For anyone who wouldn't know, can you explain a little bit about what muscle testing is, and also how the body shows signs of trauma, or how the body responds to limiting beliefs that we may have?
Yeah, of course. So muscle testing is a form of kinesiology. It's usually used for like food intolerances, but it's basically using your body as a pendulum. So your body will move forwards when you say yes, 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 and your body will move backwards when you say no, no, no. And then you can test a belief system. So you can say like, I am worthy of love. And if your body moves backwards and it says no, it means on some level you don't believe that you're worthy of love. So that's what muscle testing is. The second question, which was, do you remember?
How does the body show signs of trauma, and what do you
Great.
look out for in your clients in your sessions?
So if we look at animals and the way they deal with trauma, it's very interesting. Like if a gazelle gets attacked by a lion, and the gazelle's like, "Motherfucker, run, bitch," and she's like running, and this like lion's like basically about to maul it, but then it escapes. You see the gazelle like stop. It like literally actively shakes its whole body and then just starts grazing. It's like, I totally forgot about what just happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's done. That experience is done. Whereas as human beings, we don't have that ability. So when we experience a trauma, we go and we just, it gets locked, right? It gets locked in. And so what will happen is, of course, it can be in all parts of your body, but normally it will show up in a chakra. So normally it will show up like in your heart, or it might show up in your solar plexus if it's something to do with you losing your personal power. It might show up in your sacral chakra if it's something around like, the sense of creativity or loss of creativity, or feeling like someone's like making you feel closed and constricted. A lot of the time, if I'm like speaking to a client and I'll say, where do you feel this? Like I'll bring them. What I usually do is I use a experience that is in the present moment. So something that's happened. And I'm like, well, where did you feel that energy? Well, I felt it in my throat. Okay, great. So we now know this is about a thing that around you not being able to speak your truth. So now we know we can go back to a memory when you were a child where you didn't feel like your voice was valid or you were heard or that kind of stuff. So that's how it starts to show up in your body. And you will be able to notice that the more aware you become of yourself and of your body, you'll start to notice like, oh, okay, I feel a block here. Oh, I feel pain here, And so when I work with my clients, again, it's just because I'm tapped in and I tune into my clients, I can feel what they're feeling in their body, right? So I'm like suddenly like, okay, I'm getting like this pain in my heart. Like, what's that about? And then I allow that to like guide me and be like, oh, interesting. There's something still around, validation that they need to shift or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's something that we do in the Akashic Records as well. Is you will always hear me if you're having a session with me, ask you, and let's say, for example, we're doing some healing around trauma. I'm always going to ask you, where are you feeling this in your body? And most of my clients are like, what do you mean? Where am I feeling this in my body? Right? Because a lot of us are not fully connected or anchored in or grounded into the body. So we forget that our body is already feeling or sensing or has an awareness of something that's coming to the surface. Then when I ask them the question, they're like, oh yeah, I'm like really feeling this in my heart, or I'm really feeling this in my solar plexus. Mm-hmm. And then through that beautiful process, we can begin to tap into it and start to clear some of those physical symptoms. And it's crazy how fast things can shift once they're addressed. I'm sure you've seen that in your work as well.
I mean, I had a client it was last week. We did a session together and it was around her father, and she had an argument with her father, and they had not hugged for like 2 months, and the conversation was very like cold, and she was very sad about it because she's always had a really good relationship with him. And he did something that made her feel like unvalued, made her feel like she wasn't good enough, not worthy. Anyway, we did the session, and the next day, this is not even 24 hours, the next day her dad came up and gave her a hug. They didn't talk, nothing happened. The dad literally just came up and gave her a hug. And that is the power of energy. We have to remember that we are energetic beings. We feel energy, even if we can't see it, even if we aren't even conscious that we're feeling the energy, we're feeling it. You know immediately when someone walks in a room, whether you trust them or not. Your spidey senses are on fleek. They're like, oh, okay. You know immediately when someone walks into a room and they just have this energy, this like charisma, this uniqueness, this nerve, this talent. RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they just have it, right? And we are, and so the work that we do, the work you do and the work that I do, when you work on the energy, but on a multidimensional part, like the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical, emotional, spiritual, and I can't remember what the last one
Mental?
is. Mental. Thank you very much. When you work on all of that, it's just a whole shift and everything just will change. And you're going to see it immediately in your external, because your external is just a direct reflection of your internal reality.
Totally. I think that's one of the craziest and coolest things that I've discovered with doing this work is, let's say we're getting frustrated or upset about how we are and how people act towards us in our relationships. And we are harboring all these misgivings and these feelings. And we think, oh my gosh, if they were just to change their behavior, that would make my life better, right? But what actually we need to do is go inwards and see what the inner wounding is, see what the trauma is, see what the inner child needs, tackle all of those things, meet those parts of ourselves with love and compassion. And it's so miraculous how we start to see the dynamics shift within our relationships. And sometimes we don't even need to have a conversation with the other person. Sometimes they just shift in response to how we show up in the world.
We are the change that we want to see,
Yeah.
For me, I had a very tenuous relationship with my father, and I did a lot of work around it. I remember once I was with my mum, and I was just like at tether ends, and I was just, I can't deal with him anymore. And then my mum said, he's not going to change. You're going to have to change. And I was like, and it's like I'm changing, and then obviously, fast forward, obviously I did a lot of work on myself. And then, I became his carer, and I looked after him for like 8 months when he was dying of a brain tumor. And I would have never been able to do that had I not done the work, because I was at a place of neutrality. I understood him. I understood why he was behaving that way. And I wasn't holding on to any more resentment. I wasn't angry at him. I wasn't any of those kind of things. And the way he responded with me was completely different as well, because I chose to act differently, And so when we say, oh, that person doesn't like me, it's like, well, actually, you're probably giving off something in your frequency for them to feel like attacked or feel unsafe, and but we don't realize that. We don't realize actually the power and potency that we have. And that's why, like, this idea of free will is maybe a bit of an illusion, because on some level you have the power to change someone else's energy through your own frequency. So actually it's like whoever has the strongest connection within themselves will then impact the other person. Does that make sense?
Totally. That's such an interesting perspective. And yeah, so interesting to take a look at it, which is that if I am really fully in control of my reality and my frequency is so powerful, I am my frequency, I am my energy, and I start to shift my energy and I start to shift my dynamics, I could see how we could interpret that as free will is not what we think it is.
Because you are then changing the other person through your energy, right? So if you come from a perspective of, like, let's say it's a partner and your partner is not changing, but then you realize actually the desire that you want for your partner to change is a frequency. And if you start to inhabit that frequency within yourself without needing it from your partner, but just literally just inhabiting it, what will happen will either your partner will start to change to match you, or they will go, right? Yep. It will be one or the other. But you're creating that because you have the awareness, right? You've got given a bit of a cheat code to understand, like, the game of life.
Absolutely. Yes. So interesting to think about. I love this conversation. It's so cool. So based on your work, what are some other important things for the audience to keep in mind when it comes to living in a vibrational reality and remembering their frequency?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So one of the things around the work that I do now is understanding that actually we're moving out of an era which is called the reconnection, which is believing that the universe is outside of ourselves and believing that we're being rewarded by something outside of us. So this idea of, like, oh, if I do good, then I'm going to be rewarded, right? Like if I'm kind, then I'll get, I'll and it's a reward based scheme. It worked fine, it's a very kind of like child parent relationship, which is great because before that, you probably were in disconnection, which you didn't even believe that there was a God, or you didn't believe that anything of that existed. But now we're moving into source recall, which is actually to remember that we are God experiencing itself, like we are the universe experiencing itself. And so if that is the case, then we have to understand that absolutely everything that we see in our external reality is a direct reflection of our internal world, and we are in charge of it. So if we're seeing something that we don't like outside in our world, we have the power to change it, but we have to take radical responsibility for that change. And so if you want to, master this, and if you really want to understand this kind of this new way of being, which is like, a higher level of consciousness, you have to realize that absolutely everything that is outside of yourself is an illusion. It does not exist. The only thing that exists is you. The only thing that exists in your universe is you. It's like we are all individual universes experiencing itself, right? Mm-hmm. And so then when you don't put your attachment on the external to give you something, now guys, this is challenging and it's going to take some work, but when you realize that absolutely every desire that you have is a frequency that you already have access to within yourself, that's when you start to understand the true power that you hold and the freedom that comes from it. Because you realize, oh, okay, like I want to experience a partner. I feel lonely. I want a partner. It's like, okay, well, what is that partner going to give you? It's going to give you the frequency of safety, love, and support. How can you give yourself that frequency of safety, love, and support? How can you embody that so much that you don't need it anymore? And it now just becomes a want, like a cherry on top of the cake. And so that is the game that we're going to be playing. That's the game that you want to be playing if you want to start to like step into this new version of things, because the old way of manifesting is not working anymore. It definitely doesn't work for me anymore. And I know for a lot of people who are on this journey, it's not working for them either. And so it's actually just learning to take total sovereignty and personal responsibility and realizing we are the creators of our own reality.
100%. I love everything that you just shared. And I would love for you to share, it's 4:44 my time as I ask this question. What does that new realm of manifestation look like for you? And how do you practice that in your daily life?
So for me, the new realm of manifestation is looking more at the feeling that desire is going to get you, and just choosing to feel good because it feels good. Like not being obsessed with metrics or with money or whatever it is. Yes, okay, these are all really great things and I love it. Like, please don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the material, but it's actually just being like, I just want to feel good. Like, I don't want to feel good because I want something in return. I just want to feel good. I just want to wake up in the morning and feel like, fuck yeah, life is great. Like, I feel good. I feel loved. I feel worthy. I feel enough. And I know that there are going to be situations that are going to like push me off, and that's going to make me believe that I'm not. And then I just need to come back to my center and to my truth, right? And so it's been a journey, it's like I've been diving into this deeper, and I still have my wobbles, and I still have these moments where I'm like, it was so much easier before. Like you just like, I'm just manifesting this, it's going to come, but the roller coaster ride that we would go on, right? This thing of like, you get your manifestation and then suddenly you go into lack and you're like, oh my God, like, is it going to come or is it not going to come? Like when you're actually, self-resourced, and when you can find that internal frequency, you don't feel that so much anymore because it's already within you. And you're like, wait, it's in me. I have access to this already. Like, this is the illusion of separation that I've chosen to experience, right? This is duality, and I'm coming back to oneness. Does that answer your question?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think it's so important to hear because we get so caught up in this game of external validation via social media. We see people out there who, are manifesting or having in their lives crazy things, crazy success, crazy metrics with money, and, all of these different things that we see in our external reality. And we get caught up in this rat race where we're always searching for that next thing outside of ourselves, right? I feel like the manifestation game can sometimes feel like that. We're always searching and grasping for this physical thing that we want. But ultimately, when we remind ourselves that we come back to it all being in here and a sensation, a feeling that we desire to have, we can actually start to have more gratitude and enjoy our lives so much more by waking up and knowing, yeah, that worthiness, it's in me. That confidence, it's in me. That love, it's in me. I've got it. Right?
And that's power,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's freedom. True freedom is
Totally.
realizing that it's already all within you. And all of the sages say it, like what you're looking for is within you. The answers are within you. Like, but it's until you can actually understand that and put it into practice, it can be challenging. And of course, you're going to want to like focus on the externals, and that's normal. It's totally not. You are here to experience this illusion, this duality. But your journey and your invitation is to see how long does it take you to just come back to your center. It's the same thing of like when we choose fear over love, right? When we choose to like go into anger instead than compassion, it's not about you never going into anger ever again or ever feeling any negative, quote unquote, negative emotion again. It's about how long it takes you to just come back to your center of who you are and be like, okay, I went into my full self. Now I'm coming back into my true self. There was a reason for that. Maybe there's still some work to be done around that. There's still obviously a trigger going on. But my invitation here is just be curious. Like, don't make things mean so much. So like if you have an argument with someone, rather than being like, oh, I'm taking 2 steps backwards, just be like, interesting. I wonder why I had that argument. What's the feedback here? What's it telling me?
So important. So important. And so I want to pivot our conversation a little bit and talk about mysticism for a moment. So, Andrew, I'd love to know, what does being a mystic mean to you?
I think for me, being a mystic is like being given the cheat code to life. It's about, we were talking about this before getting on the call, but like if you ever played Sims, there was the code Rosebud or Kaching, and it meant that you had like all this like extra money. And it just feels like there's like this cheat code of like understanding the game of life, because you can just understand life on such a more profound level. It's no longer just this 3D experience. You understand the multifaceted, multidimensionalness of everything. And that is like the biggest gift. And so for me, being a mystic means freedom, means liberation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Love that answer so much. And in terms of, first of all, I want to say, I love the idea of how returning home to ourselves is such a cheat code for living a more joyful everyday life, right? Knowing that you already have everything that you need within you in order to create anything that you want in your reality. I mean, there's your cheat code right there. So looking at it that way is pretty freaking cool, if you ask me. So what tips would you share with the audience for how they can live a more mystical life themselves?
Yes, that's a good question as well. I want to invite people to start to notice how the universe is you. So what I mean by that is like how the universe is constantly communicating with you, but you're just communicating with yourself. So for example, maybe you say something and then suddenly you hear a ding on someone's phone. That's you telling yourself, pay attention to what you just said, right? Maybe, you have a moment where you're thinking of something and a song comes on the radio or whatever it is, but just start to notice how not like, it's not so much it's guiding you, because it's actually just reflecting back your own frequency and your own thoughts. So sometimes we can get a bit confused or get lost. It's like, oh, well, I just heard this, song, like we should break up. And it's like, well, yeah, actually, if you've been having those thoughts, that's what it's going to start to reflect back at you. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right thing. So it's about just kind of playing around with that, of noticing like, what are the little kind of synchronicities that are taking place in your life that are just kind of mirroring your own experience. So I'll give you an example. When I was in Thailand, I smoked a bit of weed. Sorry. It's legal. And I was with my ex-partner, and I had a trip with him before where I just thought he wasn't a very good person. And I was smoking the weed and whatever. And then that thought kept on coming into my head. And then he was like, "Oh, should we get room service?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess." He's like, "I think it's call 666." And then I just froze, and I was like, "Oh my God, he's evil. He's bad." Like he's, and then I was like, "Wait." When I sobered up, I was like, "Andrew, you were manifesting that. You were having that thought. So he had to mirror that back to you. If you were thinking positive and kind thoughts, he would have never mirrored that back at you." So it's kind of looking at those moments of the mirror of like, where is life mirroring back how I'm feeling, and how I can actually shift my frequency to then shift how that's being mirrored back at me.
Because the universe is always responding to you, right? At any
Because
given
you're the
moment.
universe. You're responding to
Yeah,
yourself.
totally. Exactly. And there are so many different ways too, like me putting myself in your shoes in that situation. I would have seen that situation totally differently from my own perspective. Because I see the number 666 as being a, positive angel number of representing, okay, needing to connect inwards and go more deeply and, connecting with my guides in that moment. So isn't it interesting how our energetic reality reflects back to us in our physical reality? And we are always going through life in that way with this constant sort of call and response.
Absolutely.
With what we create.
And that literally just kind of, confirms the idea of like believing is seeing. Like whatever you believe to be real, you're going to start to see it in your reality. And when I went through my dark night of the soul / spiritual awakening / drug psychosis, it was like I believed that I was bad or evil or whatever, and I just kept on. It just kept on being mirrored back at me. It was like, "Oh well, this is what you believe. This is your truth. This is your truth." And as soon as I started to shift that and started being like, "Actually, I am a really good person," amazing things. People would say, "You're such a good person." People would give me like a feather, or like someone gave me a little angel and said, "You're like an earth angel." You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, that's crazy, because literally like a year ago, I thought I was a demon.
That's so freaking awesome. Oh my gosh. And how quickly it can shift too.
Yeah.
When you start believing something different about yourself.
But like my 7-year journey, I would say even 8 years, could have been literally moved to a 4-month journey if I had met someone like me that did this. It could have, it really could have, but like it wasn't the case. So, that's also why I'm like, oh, I don't want anyone to have to experience what I experienced, because it was not fun. Yes, it built resilience. Yes, I became, the leader of light that I am now, but fuck me, it wasn't fun.
Totally. So I would love to know, what do you have going on in your world, in your business, that you can help support people and all the things we've talked about today?
Of course. So I've got a really cool membership called the Light Lounge. So that's my most accessible option, which is like a really cool 2 calls a month. The first call is like a group energy healing where I really just tune in. I use astrology. So this month was all about like letting go of control around success, because it's Aries season. So like just doing a really like deep energetic healing around that and visualization around that. And then the second call is more of like a sharing circle where we get to connect with one another, and where people can ask me a question and I can tune into that situation and see like what's going on frequency wise and what like advice I would give for them to shift. So that's my first thing. I have an amazing digital course called Shine Your Light, which is if you want to like tap into your authentic self. Like I created a framework, which is the authenticity pillars, which is the 4 pillars towards authenticity. This is like an 8-week digital course. It's amazing. It will literally change your life. And then I have my 1-to-1 container, which is the frequency shift or authentic you. They're kind of similar. Authentic you is focusing more on authenticity. Frequency shift is focusing more on what we were talking around frequency and shifting all of your limiting beliefs around that. And that's a 4-month container. And I have a couple more spots for that. So yeah, that's all I got.
Magical. Love all of the above. And where can people find you?
So I've got my Instagram, which is Andrew Rowe 111. I have my TikTok, which is Andrew Rowe 111. And then I have my website, which is www.andrew-rowe.co.uk.
Perfect. And all the links will be below in the show notes for people to reach out and connect with you.
Absolutely. I don't bite. I love to connect with people. If you have a question as well, like around your spiritual journey or anything, and you just want guidance, just holla.
Love that. And to wrap up, is there anything else that we didn't chat about today that you feel called to share?
I just think like the main message that I always want people to remember is like, no matter what you've gone through and no matter what anyone else has gone through and no matter what you hear, everything is love. Like the foundation of everything is love. Even in the deepest, darkest pits, there is still a thread of light. And so just remember that and to let go of judgment, like if someone's doing something like, a leader or whatever, a political leader is doing something that you don't like, just try and have compassion and understanding of why they're choosing to act this way, and also understanding how torturous it must be for their soul to be inhabiting a body that is so far removed from love. And it will just bring in more compassion for the world.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think we all could use having more compassion for the world and what's going on right now. Oh my gosh. The world is a crazy place. Yes. So thank you for being here and sharing your gift and your magic with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Andrew. Wow. Wasn't that conversation with Andrew absolutely mind-blowing? Oh my gosh. I learned so much from that conversation with him and had so many powerful insights that came up for me in my own life. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm just hopping on here with a quick public service announcement to remind you that it is time for enrollment into both my Akashic Record certification and my light language mentorship. Both of these incredible mentorship opportunities are going to help open up your psychic gifts in ways that you have never experienced before. They're going to help you connect with your divine team of guidance. They're going to help give you a whole new perspective on your spiritual journey, who you are, and what you're here to do next. The Akashic Record certification is going to help give you a modality for trauma healing that you can use to help others. So if you are a spiritual business owner or aspiring to be one and want a modality to use in your practice that is going to change your life as well as the lives of your clients, this Akashic Record certification is absolutely for you because you're going to see a huge, profound shifts in your own gifts and how you approach your work and the way that you move throughout the world. And then the light language mentorship is a totally different vibe. Each group meeting is live channeled. So I'm connecting with your guides as well as the guides of the other members of the group. I'm channeling live messages from different galactic guidance teams. We're doing live energy activations that are designed to help clear your channel, ground you into your body, and help you feel so aligned to your frequency like never before so that we can unlock the power of your light language gift. And light language, go back and listen to my episode from last week because I go into that in a lot more detail. But the purpose of it is to help you connect more deeply with your soul, connect more deeply with your guides, and channel through high frequencies of energy, which when you begin to do that, as you learned today in this episode, when you are in a high vibration, the world responds to you differently. So you're going to notice a big shift in your life when you start working with your light language. I guarantee it. And if you're getting drawn to both mentorships and you don't know which one to pick, guess what? There is a bundle opportunity. I will leave the link for that below in the show notes where you can join both mentorships at the same time. They will be, of course, during different times of the week, but you get a special rate for doing both mentorships with me. It is such a high level of transformation. You will not believe it. You will not be the same person walking into the mentorships that you are walking out. So go ahead, check out that information below. You will not regret it. And I cannot wait to support you in your divine journey this summer of 2024. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for listening to this episode. The portal is now closed.